Hello everybody, Andrew Casey from Hypersanity Books. Today we'll be looking at Goodbye Christopher Robin. With this movie, I highly recommend it as a family movie. It is particularly well, even if you're not into writing, but you have children that are family members that are younger into writing, this movie is for you. There are a lot of different subject matters to touch on as far as writing's concerned. There are certain things within this review that I have tried to gather the most accurate information I can because there is a lot of misinformation out there. Otherwise, let's just sit back and get into it.
I'd really like if you wrote a book for me. I'd definitely read it.
Shall we go for a walk?
Aren't you working?
It doesn't seem likely.
Number 10. The Nanny had 3 names. This is an important thing to think about because to Christopher Robin, she was called Nanny New. That's how he called her. Her real name is Olive Brockwell. Within the father's poetry, especially the main poem Buckingham Palace, her name is Alice because of how it rhymed with words. Now, this got quite difficult with the personal life while she was caring for Christopher Robin, and you have the crazy fandom not separating the fantasy from the reality. I won't touch on the poetry side too much, though Winnie the Pooh, it's confirmed that there is lots of poetry within a lot of its writing, a lot of play on words. Now, with the author, he did do a lot of poetry because that was one of the main sources of revenue to his writing. Previous to Winnie the Pooh, he did a lot of other short stories, crime fiction, and I was quite surprised that he dedicated his last book to his father before he started Winnie the Pooh. Number 9. Not My Mum.
I didn't want to shy away from any of her faults.
You know, the one good thing about the war is there are lots of marvellous women around like you who are never going to get married because there are no men.
With this is a sad part of the story. Now, from certain source materials, I think, to what I can gather, the mother was actually very accurate within this film. Margaret Robert played the role too well, very disassociated with her feelings and emotions.
Do you have room for one very small piglet?
Yes.
I have some very quiet friends. There'll be no trouble. Do you have any objection to tigers?
Within the film, there is a part of the interaction with the toys that she plays with Christopher Robin that was actually accurate. I think it's really sad because there was so much she could have had a deeper, meaningful relationship with her child, but it was the nanny that had the deep, meaningful relationship. And also the father, which will bring me to the next point. Number 8. Peace with Honor, an inquiry into the War Convention.
Mummy says you're writing a book to stop people going to war. I think your book is a jolly good idea.
One of the big points with this story it does touch on, he eventually did write a book against war, which is this book mentioned, in 1936. It took him a long time to write the book. There was a lot of problems with his PTSD. That was somewhat accurate within the film. Now, also with that disclosure, with so much information, it is really hard to work out what is 100% real. Number 7. Father and Son.
Oh, some of us don't like pie, you know. Don't like it at all.
With the story, yes, it does confirm that the mother was absent within a time. The nanny had to leave to look after her sick mum, and that time was to be extended. The father had no choice but to have a relationship with his child, which then started to turn into the transition to what he previously did, writing for theatre, writing books. He then started to write Winnie the Pooh with his son. Now, this was something that was confirmed to Christopher Robin, but it wasn't necessarily writing a story for him, it was writing a story about him. Number 6, the toys are real. The toys are on display at New York Public Library. They're still on display every year. Now, with the toys and interaction, that created the fantasy within that story and that playtime that Christopher Robin had with the toys. His father was writing Winnie the Pooh from that. Owl was also a character confirmed, though Owl was just an imaginary friend within the treetops. So that was something else that was created, but not from an actual toy. Number 5, December 12th, 2000. It was brought to the attention for the Canadian Medical Association to get involved and do a study on the Winnie the Pooh franchise. Now, this one goes into some crazy pill territory, which is exactly the disturbing part. So, Pooh has different diagnoses of compulsive, so ADHD, also a bit of OCD in his character. Rabbit is diagnosed with OCD. Tigger has ADD. Piglet is mildly depressed. Eeyore is an absolute depressive character. And Owl is dyslexic. Now, with Owl, he was also more created by the father to add that in as that balance between author with a mind for writing and Owl as a mind for not being able to read. And then this association has just diagnosed Christopher Robin with schizophrenia. Now, I want to say this, though. It's children play, right? The father interacting with his child, playtime, fantastic. But, oh my gosh, looking into this conspiracy theory further, it raises concerns. But it was written for fiction, and I want to make this clear. Fiction.
You do know it was me talking, not the bear. I was just playing, you see.
Yes, I was just joining in.
Number 4, Ernest Howard Shepard.
I think I've got something for us. Ernest and I are putting your bear in a book.
What will you call me in the book?
Your real name, Christopher Robin.
Let's be hunters in the snow.
The illustrator is within the story and in the film. He also did illustrations for Wind of the Willows. I was quite surprised that that was a connection. So Wind of the Willows has a connection to Winnie the Pooh. The illustrator within the story, the actor did a fantastic job and a very accurate, respectful interpretation of the real person. And this is what the illustrator looks like. I really love this aspect of the story and the respect that it did pay, and it was showing how they were going through different illustrations to compare Winnie the Pooh as a little brother to Christopher Robin. So respect for that part. Number 3, Christopher Robin or Billy Moon?
Well, there's a swan, and I wanted to call it. And blue, I mean Emil, I mean Daddy. If you call it Pooh and it doesn't come, you can just pretend you were saying Pooh. My bear has a different name in real life, and I've got a different name in real life. And there's no good asking because we shan't tell. They're our names and we're keeping them.
One of the bigger parts of the story, Billy Moon was his name at home, and then that became his name as he grew up to separate himself from his real name, Christopher Robin, and the expectations of the outside world. Unfortunately, within his life, he was bullied severely, going into private school, into other aspects of his life.
Will you say your prayers?
Leave me alone.
Shut up.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Christopher Robin got shoved down the stairs.
Nobody cares. Christopher Robin got shoved down the stairs. Nobody cares. Christopher Robin got shoved down the stairs.
Number 2, Private Moon.
As soon as I understood, I stopped writing it. What else could I do?
Nothing. We played in the woods, and then you wrote that book, and it all stopped. As if it had all been a piece of research.
So Christopher Robin, or Billy Moon, whoever you want to refer to him as, went to war. He felt resentful for his father for the way his life went. He didn't want to accept the money. That was another thing confirmed. He didn't accept the money from there. As he grew up, he did run a bookstore. He still had a passion for reading and writing, just with the consequences that came from the Winnie the Pooh franchise, there was some hardships that he faced. Within that, it shows the story where no parent wants to go through this, where you get the letter coming home with bad news from war. Number 1, positive resolution.
You reminded people what happiness was, what childhood could be, when everything else was broken.
But your own childhood,
It was wonderful.
who would have guessed that bear would swallow us up?
This was all ours, wasn't it? Before it was anyone else's.
Yes.
Now, one of the things to make clear within the wrapping up of this review, the movie is fantastic to gather certain information and inspire you to write, inspire you to appreciate how things can be created. With the story of Christopher Robin, he did return from war, he reconnected with his father, and one of the biggest points, he forgave his father for writing Winnie the Pooh. That's a massive misconception out there. He did patch things up. He appreciated having a childhood. He didn't accept the money, but he worked on his own life, owned a bookstore, and took a different passion forward. As previously said, he did love reading and writing. He was passionate, though there's just that different balance between what's real and what's not. Now, with the fractured relationship with his mother, she disassociated over the years with him, and it was harder after the events of him returning from war. The other part that was hard for her, and this is hard for a lot of people, what happened with Christopher Robin, and I'll try to say this in the cleanest way because there is a lot of followers in this channel who are younger, that's being confirmed to me. Christopher Robin married his first cousin that was on his mother's side of the family, and they had a child together called Claire. And long story short, she was born with severe cerebral palsy because of inbreeding. And that's it for today. Please hit like, subscribe, comment, and I will touch on other facts of movies about writing, but that's another story for another time.